This is the pre-test for Chapter 5, and we're going to focus specifically on the objective 5.1, which is point slope. The point slope formula you can see here at the top, y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. And the first section is really just to look at what happens if you're given both those two things. If you're given a point and if you're given a slope. And remember that we denote slope with the letter m. So the first thing you should do is to label your coordinates. So this is the x coordinate and this is the y coordinate. As there is only one coordinate for this, we would label them x1 and y1. Now the 4 steps we should be following when we do these point slope formula questions are shown to you on this example here. You should always start by writing out the formula. You should substitute in those numbers x1, y1 and m. Once you have that, you should distribute here to remove the parentheses. And most questions are going to ask you to write your answer in slope-intercept form, which means make it say y equals. So solve for y, and we solve for y by doing the inverse. So if this says -3, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 3 to both sides. This would cancel, and then I would work out what is -10 add 3. So that's the procedure we're going to follow on all these questions here. So where it says y1, I'm just simply going to write in my value 2. Where it says m, the slope, I'm going to write in 3. Where it says x1, I'm going to substitute in 1. We multiply out 3 times x, 3 times -1. And to make it say y equals, bring the -2 to the other side by adding 2 to both sides. And this would cancel on this side. Question 2. We need to be a little more careful when we have negative numbers here, and also negative slopes as well. But same thing, label your coordinate, clearly label that the slope is m, start by writing out that formula, and then substituting the numbers in. Now on this one here, we're going to subtract y1, which is -6. So those two negatives together are going to combine to give us a plus. Slope is -4, and our x1 value is just 2. When we distribute, -4 times x, -4 times -2 will give us +8. And then on the last line, when we're trying to get y equals, we're just going to do the opposite to both sides, so we get left with just y, and then 8 take away 6 would give us +2. For question 3, these are both positive again, so this should make this a little easier. x1 and y1 and m. Write the formula, substitute in, y1 is 3, the slope is 5, and our x coordinate, x1, is 6. If we multiply out, we get 5x minus 30. And then on our last line, to make this say y equals, if we do the opposite to both sides here, this will cancel, and -30 plus 3 would give us -27. Question 4 has one more question. I'm going to let you look through at your leisure. One thing to point out for this one, notice we also have x1 as -2 here. So when we subtract -2, that's going to give us a +2. Now, you can also be given these questions where you're given 2 points. Now, to use the point slope formula, you clearly need to find the slope. So we start off by going back to what we did in Unit 4 of actually finding the slope from 2 points. So begin by labeling them x1, y1, x2, and y2. And then the formula for slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So what we did here is 2 take away -1, which was 3, and 5 take away 2, which is also 3. And then make sure you simplify this answer. So 3 over 3 is 1. Once we have that step done, we now have our slope, which is m. And we also have a coordinate that's already labelled as x1 and y1. So we should use that when we do our 4 steps. So write out the formula. Substitute in the numbers, so y1, it says is -1, so take away -1 would become +1. The slope we just worked out was 1, and x1 we found was 2. Distribute, won't do anything with 1, 1 times x is just x, and 1 times -2 is -2. And then on our last line here, we would subtract 1 from both sides to leave us just with y. Question 6 is very similar. We have 2 coordinates again, so we're going to find the slope first. Using this formula, so y2 minus y1, -1 take away 11 is -12. x2 minus x1, 6 take away 2 is 4. And then we're going to simplify it again for our slope. Using our formula, we can then substitute in the numbers. So y1 was 11, so I'm using this coordinate here. The slope we just found out was -3, and x1 was x1 is 2, so we put subtract 2. Multiply throughout by -3, so we're going to distribute here, -3x, and the two negatives will combine to give us +6. And then if we do the opposite on this last line here, if we add 11 to both sides, then we're going to get y equals -3x plus 17. Now, on the last section, we're just taking equations that are already in point slope form, and we're going to change them into standard form. So first of all, we're going to do that same sort of step that we did. We're going to distribute this. We're going to move our -3 to the other side by adding 3. And remember when it says y equals, that means that it's in slope-intercept form. To put it in standard form, this is when it takes the form ax plus by equals c. A must be positive, and also we can have no fractions within our answer either. So to move this -5x to the other side then, which is sort of our aim, we're going to do the opposite here. We're going to add 5x to both sides. And then notice what we have is positive 5x. This is a positive y. And we have left 13 on the other side. And we have indeed put this into standard form. For question 8, same thing. We're just going to distribute to begin with. We're going to take away 2 from both sides. This is in slope-intercept form now. And to put this in standard form, we're going to move our x's to the other side. So subtract 2x from both sides. So we have -2x. This is a positive y, and we get left with +4, or just 4. And this is not in standard form because we said initially that a must be positive. So the easiest way for doing this is just to change the sign of every term. So negative becomes positive becomes negative, and positive becomes negative. What we really did there was we times each term by -1, and then the two negatives will make a positive, and a positive and a negative would give a negative. But I think students find it easier to contemplate the idea of just changing the sign. And for our last question, multiplying throughout by fraction this time, so -1/2 times each term. The two negatives are going to give us our plus, and use your calculators if you're not sure on the fractions. When we take away 4 from both sides, actually it cancels on this side, but 4 take away 4 is also 0. So I'm not going to put +0, I'm just going to write -1/2x. Add 1/2x to both sides, because I'm doing the inverse here. And I get 1/2x plus y is 0. So I have x and y on the same side. What I don't have though is, I don't have it in standard form yet because I have this fraction. So multiply throughout by the denominator and that will get rid of that fraction. So 1/2 times 2 is 1x or x. Y times 2 is 2y. And 0 times 2 is 0. And that concludes the test review for 5.1.